Hello people, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm checking out how America treats its people compared to other countries. I take it that should be other first world countries because you can't make that comparison with third world or second world countries. If you've been following me, you would know how I feel about the United States. I personally think the US is the greatest country in the world, obviously the richest, and of course no country is perfect. Every country has things that they can improve in. So I'm not in any position to question how Americans may feel about their country because I've never been there, I've never left my country, obviously. But it's always interesting when you see the data for immigration, where the country that people want to immigrate to. The US is always at the top. Me personally, if I were to be given a chance to immigrate out of my country, I would choose the United States as well. So give me that green card. So I guess this video is going to make me to come to my senses and look at the US in a different light. But before this video and how I've been feeling about the United States, I feel like the United States is the greatest country in the world. And that may offend some people that may be watching this video, but you have to understand where I'm coming from and where you are coming from. Where I'm coming from, I look at the US in a different manner than how you guys may be looking at it as citizens. So if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you love this reaction and if you love this video, hit that like button as well. I really appreciate it. Let's get right into it.
I'm going to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet.
Wow.
We have access to the sum total of
It's
all
coming in
human
with
knowledge.
the hits. It's coming in with the hits. It's not even, I would love this video. He's not holding back whatsoever, and he's an American. So he's criticizing his country. And his people as well.
Yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist. It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on Earth, and therefore don't see any reason to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries, and consider why the richest country on Earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you an idea of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue. It operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees, behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers in a derogatory manner? For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them. This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage. As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour. The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour. The federal minimum wage in the United States...
I mean, what I'm about to say now may be misplaced. But I'm just picturing this, like, obviously this guy is trying to say that $9 per hour, $8 per hour is bad, is not good, right? That I'm just picturing myself earning this amount of money per hour. I'm picturing myself like, that is like a dream. That is like a dream. And I get it. This is the difference between, third world countries and first world countries like the US. The cost of living is so high in these countries like the US. Cost of living is so high. Standard of living, I can't really say. I've not been to the country, so it's only the Americans that can tell me how standard of living is. But cost of living is high because for you to say that $9 per hour is horrible. Man, I don't know about that. But I can also understand that currency differences also matter. And maybe maybe my country's currency is shit. Actually, not maybe, it is shit. It is shit. So converting that amount, $9 per hour, to my currency, I'll probably be living like a king. Like, seriously, I am not mincing words here. That's almost like, let's say if I work 8 hours a day, for example. Let's just say if I work 8 hours a day, that is about, let's say, give or take $70 to $80 for the day. What? I mean, if I'm earning that in a day, guys, put it into perspective. My salary right now in where I'm working, obviously I still have to do some other things. I can't depend on that salary alone. But my salary, and that is salary that some of my colleagues are married with kids. Obviously, they're also doing other things for themselves. I would hope, because I can't imagine living on that salary with a family. But I can live with that salary by myself, though I would have a very, very low standard of living, but I won't be starving. I would still be able to afford a three-time meal or 2-time meal at least, But that my salary, give or take $95 to $100 for a month. That's my salary, guys. So you have to understand where I'm coming from. If I were to earn close to that amount, which is what this turns out to, despite the fact that it's terrible for American standards. If I were to earn that amount, I would be living like a king, So, and this is the reason why some immigrants from my country or from other poorer African countries who come to the United States, they'll come there and do all these jobs that people don't want to do, and they'll still be able to send money to their family in their homeland, because of the fact that when you calculate it that way, just someone sending, like, let me say $500 home, that is a lot for the family. So I get it. Like, me being from a third world country, I have a different outlook to this. So I'm not trying to invalidate however Americans may feel about their country. I'm just giving my perspective from where I'm coming from.
Is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade, and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position, considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States, and can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment in over 95% of US counties. Now, the all too common response to data like this is something like, well, yeah, it's not a hard job, you should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill required, pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live? Not to mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine. Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet. Other notable objections include, McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's...
That's not really fair. I think if you have ever tried to take up a business from ground up, I think that particular statement would really, really infuriate you, because of the fact that people just see businesses, when they blossom and become big and everything, it looks like a multi-billion dollar company. People seem to forget the sacrifice that comes in to bring up a business from ground up. I've had a failed business. Like, let me just put it out there. I've had a failed business, and I'm not trying to put that out there like, okay, I should feel sorry for me or anything. I'm trying to say that, like, for every big business that you see, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of failed businesses, of people that have tried to do that same thing and they failed. And I'm not trying to say that this company should not pay fair wages. I'm just saying that particular statement of, if you cannot pay fair wage, then you should close down. I think that is a bit harsh to business owners, in my opinion. That's just why I stand with it. But I can understand that. I mean, like, even if I were working, I would also love to be paid fair wages as well. Especially if I'm seeing that the CEO is living a big life. I would like to do that. But I'm just saying that there are some businesses that are basically running on, thin ice. So do you want them to close down as well? So that statement, I don't think it's fair.
Is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019, McDonald's raked in $21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice, finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated. Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. If $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest pay in the industry, that doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly, it indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages. This is where taking an international perspective is so critical. If all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid, you'll never know how badly American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour. Well, hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic.
Wow.
McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what you would make in an American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this, but they won't, because US laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having no way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours. This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy countries. Let's move on to another topic, work-life balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the US. Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But, in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices, the hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare, 401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line. America is all about cutting costs, and providing workers with fair compensation is a cost. So, imagine you apply for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers. If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefits. No healthcare, no vacation, nothing. This is a common practice. Companies will hire people, but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation. I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set their full-time position.
Man, that is really tough. That is really tough. I have to say, my perspective initially, obviously I'm coming from a third world country perspective. So this kind of situation, this kind of reality may not really be as dire for me as it may be to Americans. But when you compare the fact that America is a first world country, it's fucking damn rich. Like, America is spending so much money helping other countries around the globe, So if I were to come from that, if I were to be a citizen of this kind of country, I would really find it unacceptable to go through this, and the fact that you have to work and work and work, you don't even have time for family anymore. And no wonder I've been seeing all this news about the collapse of family in the US and all that stuff. I've been seeing it all the time. I don't know, some people blame it on feminism. I don't know, whatever. But the point is that I've been seeing all these things, and I think this could also contribute to it, because if the father and mother is working full time, barely any leave outside of maternity leave, that is terrible. That is not good at all, because it's going to affect the kids. Anyway, I don't know, and which is actually funny. My third world country, my work that I'm working right now, I am entitled to a 1 month leave. I'm entitled to that every year, a 1 month paid leave, and also another 1 week paid leave. So in total, you could say 5 weeks, and that makes me feel kind of guilty, putting up the US all that time I was talking. But let me just watch more. Let me see.
50 or 60 hours per week. Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them, and the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance. Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of
What did
children
I just see? I just said for inflation.
work-life balance.
24
For
hours,
example,
$24
in 1960,
per hour.
when
Wow,
workers had
look at
real
that.
bargaining power,
Damn. Jeez. Damn.
only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85% of American men and 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week. We work 137 more hours per year than Japanese
This is what I was saying when I was saying that some people blame feminism for it.
workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French. Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the US. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the US does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the US. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France 31, Spain 34, Austria 38, America 0.
Whoa!
0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays. And remember, these are
I knew that there was I knew that the US, I've already watched a video that mentioned that already, that the US don't have paid vacation days. But 0, there's no parastatal that gives paid vacation. No parastatal whatsoever. That is crazy. That is insane. That is insane. I was thinking that, okay, maybe private companies and all that stuff. Maybe some government parastatal, but not even one parastatal gives a paid vacation or paid leave, whatever, anyhow you want to call it. That is insane. Jeez.
the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year. Even in the worst possible employment situation, they'd still get 38 paid days off. In the US, many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all, and the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0. Let's move on to our final comparison, paid parental leave. Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and, in the long run, the company, because the employee will be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering paid parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term. And if there's one thing that encapsulates the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else. So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our dystopian labor market. And honestly, it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put US politicians out of a job. That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave. Let's take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days of
this sounds very, very crazy to me. Are you guys telling me that? Are you guys telling me that? Now, not the men, like in my country, you as a man, whether you're a father or not, you still come to work. But the women, maternity leave, like how long? I'm sure the US gives maternity leave. They can't tell me that they don't give maternity leaves. But how long is it? Like, is it not up to at least 90 days? Where at least you could give 1 month for pre-birth, then 1 month for the during birth, and another 1 month for at least the mother to be with the child for some, I think that is reasonable. That is reasonable. Seriously. Man, that is crazy, man. That is really, really crazy.
100% pay. Madagascar, 14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark, 52 weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks. Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%. Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child. These are both bad options, which often lead to economic precarity. But that doesn't matter to the company's employees.
Yeah, I've been hearing it like even in the US, like women, maybe they give birth, they leave the workforce or something like that. I think I saw something like that, some kind of data that showed that they didn't even want to work anymore, which is understandable. Man, this is kind of sad though. It's kind of sad. I mean, if it were to be my country, I would understand because we are poor as fuck. We're not poor. There's money, but our politicians have ruined everything. They steal all the money and take their children and go and keep them abroad and all that stuff. But the United States, the US is like the beacon of the world. Seriously, this is shocking.
Employing American workers. Profit is the only thing that matters. Hopefully, seeing these labor practices compared like this has made it clear that not only is the US not living up to its claim to being the greatest nation on Earth, but also that it consistently ranks poorly and often dead last in terms of labor metrics. Why is it that the wealthiest, most powerful nation on Earth can't pay their workers a fair wage, or provide healthcare, vacation time, or paid parental leave? You should realize by now that it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. Everything in America is beholden to the almighty dollar. Profit is the only motivator. If an action does not produce a greater profit, it will not be considered. Over the last few decades, Americans have watched as our livelihoods, our quality of life, and our dignity have all been stripped away by those who already make obscene amounts of money. Those in power say we're all in this together, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The ultra-wealthy and the world's largest corporations rely on Americans remaining ignorant. They rely on us accepting the lie that America is the greatest nation on Earth, that it couldn't possibly get any better. All you have to do to shatter that lie is to take a look around the world. Other nations take care of their citizens. Even impoverished nations, or nations that we've bombed into oblivion, take better care of their people than the US does. American workers need to relearn the language of class struggle and work together to break the wheel of the capitalist machine. If we want to claim that the United States is the greatest place on Earth, we need to make it that way.
I mean, this guy just mentioned capitalist machine. Is it like a socialist guy? I think I'll check out his channel again. I know there's always this argument about this capitalist socialist stuff, and I've actually read a lot about these two types of governments or ways of life, and all, anyhow you want to put it. I read about it, and I just do not see any way out outside of capitalism, because I saw one video from a socialist on YouTube. His proposal was anybody that's earning over $3 million a year should be taxed 90%. That sounds good on paper, but if I were a businessman, like, life is already hard. Life is already hard. I can't imagine me putting in the hours, putting in the work, doing all that stuff, and being taxed 90%. I would have the motivation. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. I understand the moral reason for it. You think maybe, okay, if you share that wealth, people won't have to be doing all these menial jobs and earning menial salaries, at least to be able to earn a living wage. And I get that. I understand that fully. But I'm just putting myself in a situation of a businessman, someone that is hustling. Business is not easy. I think people just assume that businessmen they just locked out. They didn't lock out. Business, like, for you to put up a business to a point where it's profitable, it's not easy. It's not. Now, if it was some kind of inheritance, that's a different thing entirely. But if it's like someone that built a business from ground to the top, it's not an easy something whatsoever. It's not. So what gives people the motivation to put in those hours, put in that work, live uncomfortably, live a life that is not comfortable? Because you need to live that kind of life to actually make it in business. You can't just, you won't be living a pleasant life. You have to deprive yourself of so many things while trying to bring up a business from ground up. So what gives people the motivation to go through all that, lose out on life, lose out on relationships, lose out on all these things, is what they are seeing in front of them. Meaning they are seeing a life of wealth, they are seeing a life of generational wealth for their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. That is what gives people the motivation to do all these things. If you now take that away and now be taxing someone 90%, why the hell would I have to put myself through all that? I would live my best life. I would live the life that will be enjoyable. I will not go through all that, suffer myself and all that. Anyway, I don't know. This topic is always very, very controversial in anyhow you want to put it. Because on one hand, it's admirable to want to share the wealth so that nobody will be living a terrible life, nobody will be homeless and all that. But on the other hand, I also put myself in the shoes of people that do businesses. It's not easy. I've done a business before. I know what I deprived myself of. I lost relationships because of that stuff, and I still failed. Then imagine if I did all that, sacrificed all that, and now got a big business and all that, and government is now going to tax me 90%. I would be mad. I won't lie to you. I would be really, really mad. That being said, I also think some of these European countries have a luxury of not spending so much on their defense. Their defense is NATO. That is their defense. And NATO is the United States, if you are being honest. So the US spent all these billions, trillions, or whatever on the military, which also in turn helps these other European countries to not spend that much. I think that was part of the things that Trump was trying to talk about during his presidency, saying that those European countries have to start pitching in more than they were. Some people in the US disagreed, some agreed with that. But these European countries have the luxury of concentrating on making the life of their citizens to be great, or to be good at least, because they're not spending much on the defense of their country. because most of their defense is dependent on the United States. If the US left NATO right now, a lot of these European countries, man, I'm telling you, like, they're ripe for the taking. Seriously. I read a lot of things about this military stuff, about like these European countries are barely not spending anything for military, which is fine. Like, I don't really see the point of all that if you are not going to use it. But the fact of the matter is that they're all depending on the US for that at this point. So they have the luxury of concentrating on their citizens, and that is where Americans may have to like tell their government, like, instead of you guys spending all this money, collecting all these taxes and spending all this money on the military, maybe designate some of that money to make things better for the people that are in the US. Anyway, I don't know. I know I went all over the place in this video. Maybe some of you guys didn't really want to hear my opinion about this, but this video was a bit it's the kind of video that can bring up a lot of thoughts, and yeah, it doesn't really change my mind, in terms of my own personal life, in my own personal perception about the United States. I still look at the United States as the greatest country in the world, despite that. But I'm shocked by some of the things I just heard right now, and it's really, really sad. And I think capitalism is still the way, but hyper capitalism, the kind of capitalism that is on steroids, is not good for the people whatsoever. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed. Hit that like button. I really appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.